This is a fast fruiting strain, so we got to these too late. We're gonna have to rip off the top and get a second flush out of these. Yeah, the Pioppino is a fast fruiting strain for us. It's usually by day 21 after inoculation, it's ready to go in the grow room. It's like I don't know. It seems like it's every time it's always fruiting. So if you don't catch it, we just kind of harvest whatever is grown onto it and just put it in the grow room. It'll keep producing mushrooms until it's exhausted of nutrients. I got 2 more of these things that are on the way, but they haven't showed up yet. Kind of have like a cleaning bucket with you whenever you're doing any kind of harvesting to just dispose of any waste material. Yeah, this is the new sawdust right here. At least it shows us that the Pioppino grows well on it. Yeah, we recently got some a local furniture company that was basically throwing away all their sawdust that they were using to make this custom furniture, and they reached out to us, seeing if we could use it. So we started experimenting with it, and so far all of our mushrooms are doing really well on it. It's an alder sawdust, 100% alder. If you ever get like local sawdust from like a furniture company or something like that, make sure that it's untreated wood that's free of any kind of glues or any chemicals. So our the one that we're working with, they actually have a waiver that they're able to give. So that'd be a good thing to check out. And now we're just kind of peeling off these grown mushrooms, these overgrown mushrooms in here. These aborted mushrooms is really what I call them, is when they basically abort because the conditions aren't met to provide optimum fruit body production. I like to fruit the Pioppinos just right out the top. We have a few strains that we'll just do a top fruit where we just grow the mushrooms right out the top of the bag. And then other strains that we just do a slice on the bag where the mushrooms can just grow straight out the side. Or shiitake, where we just take the whole bag off and mushrooms grow from all sides of the block. So yeah, this is what aborted mushrooms look like. If you get these mushrooms right in the grow room as soon as you see them, then you get these beautiful crops of Pioppino, but it's not a big deal. We just remove this mass. If you really wanted to go an extra step, you could take this stuff that we're removing and powder it and make like a mushroom powder or something like that. But I'd rather just take some better quality fruit bodies to make our powder. We like to cut the bag like at least 3 to 4 inches from the substrate to give a nice little humid microclimate. These ones don't. The reason we rough up the top of the king trumpet is because the mycelium tends to overlay. It forms like a thick mass on the top, so that's why we just scratch it up. Since we're pulling this first flush from these blocks right now, we're kind of doing that already. So it'll be nice. We'll take some of these bags and start loading them up into our grow room. So yeah, these conditions in here are actually about between 82 to 86% humidity. We just finished a fruiting cycle in here. I'm actually gonna up it now that we're loading fresh blocks in to probably get the humidity closer to around 92%. But then again, like it requires attention to detail because you gotta notice, I like high humidity at the beginning stages to promote the mushrooms to form, and then once they do begin forming, kind of lower down the humidity a little bit gradually as they mature so they don't become overly wet. The humidity in the room is basically just to serve a purpose of allowing the mushrooms to grow without them drying out. The mushrooms get all their water from the substrate. They are extracting their water from the substrate as they grow. They don't actually get their moisture from the humidity in the air. Humidity in the air just prevents the mushrooms from actually drying out as they grow. And we're just going to continue cleaning off the tops of these blocks, being sure not to leave any kind of mushrooms behind. Those could be the sites for contaminants to grow. and other molds, just rotting mushrooms basically. So we'll just remove all those. Usually we always catch it before this, but sometimes we don't. And if that happens, then we just do this. We'll just harvest off anything that has grown already and just throw it in there. And usually within about a week to 10 days, we can get another crop of mushrooms off of this bag. A beautiful crop of mushrooms. This strain grows out very nicely. It grows these really nice canopies of these delicious velvet golden topped little mushrooms. It's definitely one of our favorite strains to grow and to eat. It's a very flavorful strain, and it also makes a nice powder, which can really give a nice flavor to like soups and other dishes. You will get the same nutritional benefits. It'll just be powdered mushrooms, so all those nutritional values and all those nutritional goodies will still be stored within the powder, and then added into your broths or soups or recipes. You can actually get the mushroom vitamins and minerals into your diet all the time. So yeah, they can experiment with just different ways to integrate medicinal and gourmet mushrooms into their diets, whether it be powders or teas, or with the powders, or which is cool, you can just add them into recipes. We do the lion's mane powder, and at home we'll add it into our smoothies. We'll even use it to add it into our baking mixes and stuff, like lion's mane pancakes or certain breads. It's even great for the little ones. I mean, they don't even know that they're eating lion's mane pancakes.
Exactly. I got a 3-year-old at home, and we've tricked her into eating what she thought were chicken strips, but it was really king trumpet breaded with lion's mane powder. So it's a little 2-for-1 there.
That's awesome.
And now she likes my chicken strips a little bit more than mom's.
Really?
You're not supposed to tell her that.
10 days and we'll do a harvest. And then after that, we can even probably get another harvest after that within another 10 days. And then after that, we'll get rid of these blocks. They will make their way into either a farmer's compost. A couple local people will pick them up to turn it into soil. But yeah, just basically not have any old substrate sitting in our facility. Can just be like a breeding ground for more contamination. We actually have a few more blocks. Now these were, we have a couple grow kits that we didn't sell, so we're just gonna go ahead and fruit them inside of our grow room at this point, just because this was an oyster mushroom and now we got this extreme overgrowth in the top of our bag. So it's not really a viable grow kit, but we won't let it go to waste. We'll still put it in our grow room and we'll get a few mushrooms out of it. Sometimes we try to, I try to grow a little bit more, just in case. You never know if something unexpected will happen. So I always like to have a little bit too much in incubation than a little bit too little. I remember when I first started, it was hard, I mean, I'd go to a farmer's market and leave with $30 of sales for the day. Just because I wasn't in the good markets yet. This is a smaller market. And being a new company, nobody really knew that we existed, and that mushrooms can even be grown in Phoenix, Arizona. We still get a lot of people that are very surprised that our mushroom operation is right 4 miles west of downtown Phoenix. And it's just gotten to the point where we've built a reputation and we've really perfected our product as much as we can to turn heads and to get the right people noticing. So I'm already about 2.5 years to 3 years into the business, about 2.5 years now. And it's become it's definitely, it's been nice. I mean, it's had its challenges and it is a lot of work. You're gonna be spending most of your days just working, doing production, lab, balancing all your tasks.
This isn't the typical 9-to-5 job.
It really isn't.
You can come in here and see the mushrooms fruiting out of the bags in the tents, and they aren't ready to harvest at 9 a.m. But by the time that you get the warehouse cleaned up and you're
time to go home, it's time to harvest.
Yeah, it's time to harvest. And so you really are on their times. These mushrooms don't take Christmas off. They don't take Thanksgiving off.
I side fruited these pinks because
That one that's up there is just booming out.
well, dude, that was actually growing already out of it. I had a hole had came into the bag in the lab, and I taped it over with a piece of micropore tape. And then when I was in incubation yesterday, that was popped off. The micropore tape had popped off of the bag, and the mushroom was coming out. This is the Japanese pink oyster that we were just transferring in the laboratory. This is about a day and a half into fruiting. So a day and a half ago, this thing was the size of the tip of my pinky. Now it's right here. In the next 2 days, it'll be ready to harvest. It'll be a full-grown mushroom that we'll pick off of this block. And it's really cool to see. This beautiful-looking cluster. These blocks have flushed 3 times, so they're done. Time to clear out some space. You could get up to 5 flushes, but
To push the limits.
by then your mushrooms are, you're only going to be getting like 1 or 2 mushrooms a block. Like here we see, this is like a 4th flush right here, and we're only getting this much mushrooms. So it's really not worth it to keep it around at this point. We can just put in some fresh blocks. After like 3 or 4 flushes, the mushroom mycelium's the immune system becomes really weak, and can be easily compromised by like a contaminant. But your first flush, you won't be seeing any contamination unless you have a contaminated block. But yeah, for the most part, these are looking, they did their job. In nature, you'd find oyster mushrooms growing off of the sides of trees. So here we kind of try to simulate that way of growth with this block. Inside is oak hardwood sawdust, and the bag kind of acts as an artificial bark, tree bark. So when we give it an incision, it kind of just acts as in nature when the mycelium starts poking out at the right points and receiving the right O2 levels that sends mushrooms out. So yeah, we have a few different kinds of reishi here. This is a Ganoderma multifilum. It's like an orange. For us, it grows out in this orange-yellow color, different than our other strains that we have. And here's our Ganoderma Cecile. I love this strain. It grows out these beautiful conch-like formations. It has a really nice red coloration to it. Sometimes when you put your blocks close together, you'll find that 2 Ganodermas will fuse together. So that's pretty interesting. And let's see if we can cut that off. And we supplemented the Ganoderma multifilum this time, and I think it'll do better with an unsupplemented substrate. Yeah, and we find that it doesn't like a humid environment. The Ganoderma multifilum, if it's too wet, basically it has the possibility to growing a little bit of green mold on it. So set those aside. Substrate cart. The reishi is definitely an intensive harvest. So we'll just cut each antler off at the base of the block. It's kind of like a forest of reishi down there. And that's a nice little reishi harvest right there. Ganoderma Cecile, Palmer Woods. I just flushed reishi out 1 time. We get pretty good yields on our first flush, and it does take a long time to grow, so we don't really like putting them in there for a second flush. The majority of the reishi is grown in the bag, and we open up the bags just to put them in the grow room so they can develop these conch-like features. It's due to the higher O2 levels inside of the grow room. Gives that reishi the signal to kind of begin producing these conchs, and it helps really with the distribution of the spores of this mushroom. And it produces a lot of spores. Reishi is one of the most aggressive colonizers, and it's a fairly easy mushroom to grow. We usually see blocks of this strain colonized within about a week. So the actual growth process of the fruiting body is what takes the longest. But I'd find about 2 months, 2 to 3 months after inoculation, I can be ready for harvest. With reishi, you're gonna wanna use some pretty good shears, just because It is such a tough mushroom. It's an intensive harvest, but well worth the reward. These mushrooms are great brewed up into tea. That's the best way I find to prepare them, because they're so tough. Really, if you try to eat them or powder them or add them into like any of your recipes, they're gonna be pretty tough to break down. So treating them with heat and water as the extraction is the best way for me to personally do it. It shows that it really breaks down the substrate into almost a pulp-like matter, ready to begin composting into soil. Yeah, this is the most aggressive reishi that we have. Being able to break down the substrate like that to where it just easily rips off, it's insane.
Little to no cleaning up on the bottom either.
I know. Yeah, this is the best reishi. This is the Ganoderma lucidum. You get these really nice lacquered stems, or these just beautiful caps, or conchs is what we call them. But they're 75% water compared to most mushrooms being 90%. So
And is that why they're more difficult to harvest?
yeah, they're more tissue based, and they basically dry up to heavier weight than like a half a pound of our fresh shiitake would dry up to about an ounce, and then a half a pound of these guys would dry up to like two ounces or so, almost. This multifilum is the hardest harvest. Hardest harvest. But patience and time. It's used for teas, tinctures, really just strictly medicinal use. It's been like shown to help improve the immune function and boost like the production of necessary T helper cells, and it contains some really like unique beta glucans and polysaccharides that have also been shown to like terminate tumor and cancer growth. So really good mushroom that has a lot of promising research, and it's been used by Eastern medicine for over 4,000 years. Honestly, it's a great mushroom to grow and use. Yeah, so just work on it on this supplemented substrate. Just really gets tough down towards the base. Very hard to harvest. Zach, did you try pulling this one up like you did the lucidum?
Oh, I tried, yeah. Yeah, it was like pulling a sword out of a stone there.
So yeah, if you do decide to grow a bunch of multifilum, take in the consideration that it's the most effort to get the harvest for especially grown on a supplemented substrate. I think the next time I grow it, I'm gonna experiment with some just plain sawdust, no supplements. And then there we have the cut right there, and we have a little bit of sawdust attached, so I'll just trim this off the best I can. And there we have it. It's beautiful Ganoderma multifilum. I'll just put these right here.